Joe Truzman is a research analyst for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and specializes in Palestinian groups and Hezbollah. Thank you so much for giving us some time and some perspective this morning. Perspective is desperately needed on all sides right now for the foreseeable future. Let me just start a little bit with last week's news, was that the leader of Hezbollah did kind of make a statement. Everyone was kind of anticipating that, okay, is he going to say they're fully jumping in here? And basically what he said was that all options remain on the table, but he did stop short of announcing any kind of full-scale escalation. How did you read that statement, and what did the tea leaves suggest right now Hezbollah may do? Because that could also, again, become another turn, their entry could become another turning point in this conflict.
Right. First of all, thanks for having me on this morning. Yeah, just like you're saying, the statements that Hassan Nasrallah made last week, or a few days ago rather, is important. Now, what's been happening over the last few weeks, I guess you say now a month now, is that Hezbollah has been attacking IDF positions along the Lebanon border. There have been some attacks against civilian infrastructure as well in northern Israel. So now what we're seeing here is that it's everything that Hezbollah has been doing and what the Israeli military has been doing in response has been below a threshold of an all-out war. All right. So, for instance, the Israelis aren't bombing Beirut, for example, and you haven't seen Hezbollah attacking, let's say, Tel Aviv. So they're keeping everything confined for now to the border area. So, which is good news if you can see it like that. However, that can change at any moment, and that's why there's many concerns in Israel and in the United States and across the region that this could explode into a regional conflict.
Joe, the Lebanese foreign minister told CNN over the weekend that the government was working with Palestinian groups to prevent a war, but we know Israel has already declared one. At this point, can the Lebanese government say or do anything to prevent an escalation, or is it too little too late?
Right. So the point that needs to be made here is that Hezbollah controls southern Lebanon. All right. Nobody else. We see the UNIFIL, for example, operating there, United Nations and the Lebanese army. But when it comes down to it, it's Hezbollah. And it's Hezbollah only. There are some armed groups there that are aligned or allies of Hezbollah that specifically are Palestinian, like Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and there are other groups as well. So I wouldn't say it's too little too late, but I'll say this. If Hezbollah wants to start an all-out conflict with Israel, nobody is going to stop them other than their paymasters in Tehran.
President Biden said something very interesting while in Israel in the last few days when he kind of, in presenting to the world stage this idea that Hamas does not represent Palestinians and all Palestinians are not Hamas. He was trying to draw that line. In other words, trying to build sympathy for the civilians who are not terrorists, but yet are caught in the middle of what must be a living hell in Gaza that's about to get a whole lot worse. And just because I don't think people follow the intricacies of foreign policy or understand that part of the world, in broad, humane terms, talk about the relationship between Hamas and the people of Gaza and whether it is and how to separate those two from the terrorists versus the people who just want to get to safety and freedom, and why the sympathy for those innocents can sometimes be perceived as pro-Hamas or anti-Semitic, which is unfair.
I understand. Yeah, it's a difficult subject, right? So, listen, in previous years, if there were, let's say, demonstrations by Palestinians against Hamas rule, let's say Hamas would tax food or gas or fuel, things like that, to a very high level to fund its war machine or its terrorism machine. If people would try to demonstrate, right, Hamas police would crack down on them immediately. All right. So Hamas cannot have its civilians, its population of Gaza, threaten it, even though you would think they would be protecting them, but it's quite the opposite. That's the issue here. And there are a lot of examples of this throughout the years. So I think that's one point to make. But I think another thing that's very important here is this. Hamas has been living beside Israel for decades now, so they understand, and they've been through conflicts with Israel quite a few occasions. There was one in 2021. There's a few others before that, and there was a large one in 2014 that lasted 50 days. So anyway, point being is that Hamas understands of how the Israelis think, how the Israeli military works. Not completely, of course, but they have an understand because they live beside them, right? So what happened on October 7th, the planning that took place before that by specifically by Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, he understood that if Hamas was to be successful in attacking southern Israel and abducting the civilians and killing all these civilians, that there would be a massive response by the Israelis, just because of history, all right? And but they went ahead with it anyway, knowing that what would happen to the civilians in Gaza, right? So that tells me that Hamas and its leadership doesn't care about its civilians at all. So I think that's a really important point to make here.
And that's chilling to hear that, knowing that we're getting closer every day now by the hour to urban warfare right there in the heart of Gaza City. That's what's going to happen this week. Joe, please come back. Appreciate your perspective and your expertise in this area, and we're going to need it to get through what may come in the next 48 hours. Thank you.